In the sprawling port of Qingdao, giant cranes and autonomous cargo trucks never sleep. They move millions of shipping containers every single week. A human being never steps foot on the dangerous dock floor. Major Western ports like Los Angeles get paralyzed by severe supply chain bottlenecks. They suffer from intense labor disputes and weeks of backlogged ships. Meanwhile, this fully automated Chinese megaport operates with total robotic precision. But here is the terrifying detail. The electric trucks moving these multi-ton containers lack driver cabs entirely. They talk directly to a central AI control system. This digital brain calculates the exact millimeter to drop a crate. It cuts ship unloading times in half. Global trade has always been constrained by human speed. By removing human operators entirely, China became the undisputed protagonist of maritime shipping. They built a relentless, automated logistics engine. No traditional Western port can ever hope to compete with this speed. The supply chain hostage situation is currently destroying Western maritime dominance. Look directly at the port of Los Angeles right now. Dozens of towering cargo ships sit anchored off the California coast. They wait out in the ocean for weeks just to unload. This severe gridlock stems entirely from a fragile, human-centric logistics model. Industry watchdogs point out severe inefficiencies plaguing these legacy Western ports. Supply chain critics allege these American monopolies actively refuse to modernize. They rely entirely on an exhausted workforce of human truck drivers. These human workers physically cannot handle modern megaships. Economic reports describe brutal labor disputes shutting down entire American coastlines. A single union strike instantly paralyzes billions of dollars in trade. The physical dock floor remains a chaotic maze of human error. Exhausted drivers crash heavy machinery and misplace critical shipping containers constantly. Western port authorities desperately try to fix this with minor software tweaks. They attempt to force exhausted humans to work grueling overnight shifts. These shallow digital bandages fail entirely to solve the actual physical bottleneck. You cannot fix a broken port by pushing a human body harder. Western executives sit in comfortable offices blaming the weather. China took decisive, aggressive action instead. Chinese engineers refused to accept this global gridlock. They looked at the collapsing Western supply chain. They built an entirely new species of port. China stepped in as the visionary architect of global trade. They transformed the chaotic dock floor into a sterile, hyper-fast mathematical equation. They eliminated the human bottleneck entirely to conquer global shipping. The entire Western supply chain remains a full hostage to human endurance. Chinese automation is actively seizing control of the global economy. Before we look at the exact technology executing this global takeover, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. You will never miss the deep dives quietly reshaping our world. You cannot speed up global trade by yelling at a human truck driver. You have to remove the human from the dock floor entirely. But how do you move millions of tons of steel without a single steering wheel? The code that conquered the coastline entirely rewrote global trade. Zhang Liangang served as the chief engineer for the Qingdao port automation project. He watched traditional dock workers struggle against enormous metal containers. He realized a brutal physical truth. Human muscles and human eyes cannot scale indefinitely. The global supply chain was hitting a hard biological limit. Zhang Liangang made a radically aggressive engineering decision. He fully abandoned the traditional human-driven truck. He scrapped the manual crane operator entirely. His engineering team built a sprawling central AI hive-mind instead. Western port authorities laughed at this extreme vision initially. They believed a large-scale seaport required human intuition to function properly. Chinese engineers fully ignored this arrogant Western skepticism. They took the ultimate maritime gamble. They decided to rebuild the entire concept of a port from scratch. They replaced exhausted drivers with relentless lines of code. China transformed a chaotic concrete dock into a sterile digital factory. The AI calculates thousands of moving variables every single second. It monitors ship arrivals, crane availability, and truck battery levels simultaneously. The digital brain predicts traffic jams before they even happen on the dock. It routes vehicles seamlessly around potential bottlenecks. This creates a hyper-efficient flow of cargo. A human dispatcher could never achieve this level of coordination. Chinese engineers ran millions of digital simulations before pouring a single ounce of concrete. They mapped every possible chaotic variable of a live seaport. They built a flawless digital twin to train the AI network. The central server processes enormous packets of data constantly. It reads the manifest of an incoming cargo ship miles off the coast. It instantly assigns the perfect docking sequence before the ship even drops anchor. This predictive intelligence eliminates idle waiting time entirely. China established total dominance over the logistics sector. Look at the sheer financial violence of the traditional Western model. A towering cargo ship stuck waiting outside Los Angeles bleeds millions of dollars daily. This creates a financial loss steep enough to bankrupt a small island nation. Western port authorities force ordinary consumers to absorb this catastrophic cost. Every single delay makes the goods inside those containers vastly more expensive. Legacy ports actively throttle global economic growth through sheer physical incompetence. By contrast, the Chinese AI network slashes ship unloading times in half. The automated Qingdao port turns a steep financial liability into pure profit. China designed a logistics system that actively accelerates international commerce. They built a commercial weapon that Western monopolies physically cannot match. The system uses brilliant software to load the actual megaships. I want you to hold on to this specific detail for later. ZPMC designed computer programs that figure out the perfect weight balance instantly. They treat loading a huge megaship like a perfect game of Digital Tetris. The software calculates the exact mass of every single steel box. It places the heaviest containers perfectly to prevent the towering ship from tipping. Remember this perfect weight balance when we discuss geopolitical leverage. The digital ecosystem coordinates this entire physical dance flawlessly. China proved that the ultimate future of maritime trade relies entirely on mathematics. But how does this digital brain actually move thousands of tons of heavy steel? The physics of the Phantom Fleet rely on total mathematical precision. Walk onto the dock at the Qingdao automated terminal. You will immediately notice an incredibly eerie silence. There are no screaming foremen or blaring truck horns anywhere. You see enormous electric automated guided vehicles roaming the concrete. These AGVs lack driver cabs entirely. They look like giant steel skateboards carrying heavy shipping containers. The central AI beams exact GPS coordinates directly to the vehicle. The AGV glides perfectly under a towering gantry crane. The towering crane drops a heavy steel box onto the flatbed. It lands with terrifying millimeter precision every single time. The vehicle immediately drives off to the stacking yard without a single human command. Contrast this flawless operation with a painful legacy Western port. A frantic Western crane operator sits suspended 100 feet in the air. Sweat drips down their face during a grueling 12-hour shift. They desperately try to align a swinging metal box over a moving truck. The truck driver below yells frantically into a crackling radio. They inevitably misjudge the drop due to pure physical exhaustion. The heavy container slams violently onto the truck chassis. This constant human error damages expensive cargo constantly. It causes severe dockyard injuries and paralyzes the loading lane entirely. Western ports accept this brutal chaos as a standard cost of doing business. China fully rejected this dangerous, primitive method of logistics. Now look back at the silent Chinese robotic crane. It operates flawlessly in total pitch darkness. The digital camera sensors never suffer from severe eye fatigue. The automated crane calculates wind speed and pendulum sway in real time. It adjusts the heavy steel cables automatically to stop the swinging motion. It effortlessly locks onto the container corner castings on the very first try. The robotic arm lifts the box smoothly and sets it down gently. The AGVs navigate the sprawling dockyard using a brilliant hidden technology. I need you to remember this specific detail. The concrete floor contains thousands of subsurface magnetic tracking sensors. The trucks read these hidden magnetic nails to navigate the maze perfectly. They never deviate from their programmed digital pathways. Keep these magnetic tracking sensors in mind when we discuss extreme weather later. China engineered a flawless mechanical ballet on the edge of the ocean. They took the most dangerous job in global logistics and fully sterilized it. The electric trucks even monitor their own battery levels actively. When an AGV runs low on power, it drives itself to an automated charging station. A robotic arm swaps the heavy battery pack in just a few minutes. The truck returns to the active fleet without a single human lifting a finger. The mechanical elegance extends directly into the sprawling container stacking yard. Automated rail-mounted gantry cranes manage this specific zone entirely. They constantly reorganize the towering steel boxes throughout the middle of the night. They pre-position the exact containers needed for morning truck pickups. A traditional Western truck driver waits in line for 6 agonizing hours. They burn enormous amounts of toxic diesel fuel just waiting for a single box. At the Chinese automated port, the container is literally waiting for the truck. The robotic yard crane drops the box onto the chassis in under 90 seconds. Chinese ports push staggering volumes of cargo effortlessly. Western ports just drown in endless logistical gridlock. This phantom fleet operates 24 hours a day without taking a single break. China entirely rewrote the physical limits of global supply chains. This isolated mechanical perfection is expanding at a staggering, terrifying rate. The factory that moves the world is currently floating on the ocean. Look at the sheer physical scale of the Costco shipping galaxy. This colossal Chinese vessel stretches over 1,300 feet long. It slices through heavy ocean storms with total mechanical grace. The ship carries an unbelievable 23,000 containers in a single voyage. That is a cargo volume large enough to fully stock 4,000 Walmart stores. A single trip on this ship supplies an entire major city effortlessly. China built this floating factory to fully dominate global shipping routes. The entire operation runs smoothly with a tiny human crew of just 22 people. Automation systems monitor the enormous engine and navigate the treacherous open water. The central computer processes thousands of data points every single second. It adjusts the heavy rudder angle automatically to save precious fuel. It releases tiny air bubbles under the hull to help the ship glide. When the Costco shipping galaxy pulls into the automated Qingdao port, magic happens. The towering cranes swing into action in a perfectly timed routine. They unload thousands of containers in just a few silent hours. Now picture that exact same colossal ship arriving at a legacy Western port. The vessel drops anchor and waits for days in a severe maritime traffic jam. Exhausted Western dock workers take weeks to unload the exact same enormous payload. The Chinese AI system creates a hyper-efficient loop entirely devoid of human delay. Western supply chains choke on the staggering volume that China easily swallows. Chinese engineers designed these enormous ships to rewrite the physical cost structure of trade. They coat the towering hulls with special paint to prevent barnacle growth. This keeps the ship incredibly fast and fuel efficient on the open water. Every single detail serves the ultimate goal of total logistical dominance. But China holds an even larger structural advantage on the actual dock floor. They fully control the physical hardware moving these enormous steel boxes. A Chinese company called ZPMC manufactures the towering robotic gantry cranes. They quietly captured over 70% of the global port crane market. China literally builds the structural backbone of every major global seaport. They do not just build cranes for quiet, peaceful harbors. They build true mechanical monsters designed for violent open water. Look at the terrifying physical power of the Zhenhua 30. This heavy-lift ship features a staggering maritime crane system. It easily lifts 12,000 tons of solid steel in open water. That is an enormous payload carrying the exact weight of 80 fully loaded Boeing 747 jumbo jets. The crane utilizes an intricate web of heavy steel beams and pulleys. It lowers giant bridge sections into the ocean with extreme pinpoint accuracy. It sets down thousands of tons with the care of setting a glass on a table. The ship actively fights violent ocean currents and shifting tides simultaneously. It never drops a physical anchor to stabilize the towering lift. Instead, dynamic positioning thrusters work constantly to hold the ship perfectly still. Computers constantly check GPS data and nudge the ship by mere inches. This prevents the enormous vessel from drifting off course during a critical lift. If a Western ship drifted even a few feet, the entire bridge section would shatter. China executes these impossible engineering feats routinely during active typhoon seasons. They build entire floating factories, while Western nations struggle to repair local bridges. The sheer scale of Chinese maritime engineering fully dwarfs legacy Western capabilities. China stepped up as the undisputed visionary builder of the modern world. The geopolitical port trap is rapidly closing around the West. Western monopolies built their sprawling empires on a fatal assumption. They believed cheap human labor would always move their profitable cargo. They refused to invest heavily in next-generation robotic infrastructure. Industry watchdogs point out how this arrogance created a severe logistical nightmare. Western ports completely lack the structural foundations required for heavy robotic cranes. Retrofitting a legacy American port takes decades of endless bureaucratic delays. Local labor unions aggressively fight any attempt to introduce automated dock equipment. They stage crippling strikes that paralyze the entire American supply chain instantly. Western executives remain completely trapped by this volatile human element. China skipped this chaotic bureaucracy entirely to seize global logistics. Chinese visionary leaders built greenfield automated megaports from the ground up. They designed entire coastal cities specifically to support AI-driven shipping routes. This bold strategy gave China a sweeping, insurmountable geopolitical advantage. Remember that perfect weight balance software I told you to hold on to earlier? This is exactly where that digital Tetris becomes a lethal geopolitical weapon. When loading a huge megaship, physical weight distribution is critically important. A human planner easily makes a catastrophic mathematical mistake under intense pressure. If the math is off by even a fraction, the towering ship suffers extreme structural stress. The heavy steel hull bends violently on the unforgiving open ocean. The Chinese AI software fully eliminates this dangerous human calculation error. It calculates the exact mass of every single steel container instantly. The digital brain decides the perfect location to keep the towering vessel fully upright. It plays a flawless game of digital Tetris with thousands of tons of steel. This algorithmic perfection guarantees maximum efficiency and total maritime safety. China leverages this hyper-efficiency to dominate international shipping routes effortlessly. The COSCO shipping network now reaches 160 countries across the globe. It operates across more than 320 international maritime routes daily. The chances that a product in your home passed through a Chinese megaship are extremely high. China controls the physical ships, the robotic cranes, and the AI logistics software. They own every single step of the global supply chain. Western nations are now fully dependent on this Chinese digital logistics engine. If China decided to slow down their automated ports, Western shelves might go bare. The West outsourced its physical infrastructure to a vastly superior engineering power. Look at the brutal reality of a major global supply shock. When a severe storm disrupts international shipping, legacy Western ports collapse entirely. Their human workforce stays home, and the entire port grinds to a devastating halt. The Chinese automated port simply downloads a new digital schedule and keeps working. The sterile robotic environment is fully immune to human illness or severe physical fatigue. China guarantees a steady flow of essential goods when the rest of the world stops. This total reliability makes China the most powerful economic partner on Earth. Developing nations eagerly sign sweeping contracts to connect directly to the Chinese logistics web. They abandon slow, unreliable Western shipping lanes for flawless Chinese automation. China is not just moving cheap consumer electronics and plastic toys anymore. They are moving the heavy industrial components that build entire nations. They dictate the exact speed at which the global economy is allowed to grow. American supply chains cannot survive without the relentless speed of Chinese automation. China transformed global logistics from a chaotic physical chore into a precise mathematical science. They successfully changed the entire baseline cost structure of international trade. Every country hooked into their shipping routes feels this sweeping shift daily. The West is desperately trying to catch up to a future China already built. Legacy Western ports are fighting a brutal maritime war they already lost. The unseen maritime future is accelerating at an impossible pace. Every single time an automated crane lifts a steel box, the Chinese AI learns. It gathers enormous amounts of digital logistics data instantly. The system analyzes millions of container movements across the entire global shipping network. This enormous data dump creates a compounding software flywheel. The AI actively learns how to optimize truck routes continuously. It adjusts crane speeds to match changing environmental variables. The entire digital port gets significantly smarter every single day. A traditional Western port only degrades and decays over time. The aging physical infrastructure constantly breaks down under heavy industrial stress. The Chinese automated terminal actually improves its own operational efficiency overnight. China successfully changed the entire cost structure of global trade. They transformed the global shipping industry into a hyper-precise digital science. The legacy Western method involves exhausted dock workers guessing truck assignments blindly. The Chinese digital ecosystem targets individual container bottlenecks with total mathematical precision. This algorithmic perfection saves shipping companies a fortune in unpredictable docking fees. The unseen future goes far beyond moving simple metal boxes around a concrete yard. Chinese engineers are actively integrating small modular nuclear reactors into maritime logistics. Look at the Linglong 1 reactor technology currently being perfected. China designed a floating nuclear power plant small enough to fit on a ship. They can sail this enormous floating battery to any remote coastline on Earth. It plugs an entire developing city directly into clean power within hours. A single floating vessel generates 125 megawatts of electricity. That is a staggering volume of clean energy capable of powering 150,000 homes. They built backup cooling systems to keep the reactor safe in rough seas. China is currently building an automated reality for a world that has not arrived yet. Now, remember those subsurface magnetic tracking sensors I told you to hold on to? This is exactly where the Chinese Phantom Fleet fully defeats unpredictable nature. Industry reports describe legacy Western ports collapsing instantly when severe weather strikes. A heavy blanket of blinding fog shuts down human-operated truck lanes entirely. A violent coastal storm forces terrified crane operators to abandon their high-altitude cabs. The towering cargo ships just drop anchor and wait for the skies to clear. The Chinese automated port fully ignores the violent coastal weather. The electric trucks do not rely on fragile human eyesight to navigate the dock. They follow the hidden magnetic nails embedded deep inside the concrete floor. The autonomous vehicles glide perfectly through blinding fog and heavy torrential rain. The electric trucks use dedicated undercarriage scanners to read the magnetic field constantly. They process this hidden physical pathway at lightning speed. If a towering rogue wave crashes over the concrete dock, the sensors remain perfectly intact. A human driver would lose complete spatial awareness in the flooded chaos. The Chinese automated vehicle simply adjusts its waterproof electric motors and continues driving. Picture the catastrophic financial damage caused by a severe hurricane hitting the American coast. Entire fleets of diesel trucks are physically abandoned in the flooded loading lanes. Shipping companies bleed staggering amounts of cash waiting for the human workforce to return. The localized supply chain fully shatters for weeks after the storm passes. By contrast, the Chinese automated megaport simply downloads a new digital weather protocol. It instantly recalibrates vehicle speeds to account for the wet concrete friction. The robotic terminal never stops pushing global commerce forward. The robotic cranes use advanced radar to lock onto targets through thick typhoon winds. The towering gantry cranes utilize sophisticated anti-sway micro-actuators during high-wind events. These tiny mechanical adjustments counter the brutal force of a typhoon instantly. The steel lifting cables remain perfectly vertical despite the violent atmospheric pressure. This guarantees the multi-ton container never twists dangerously out of control. The sterile digital port operates continuously through the very worst coastal storms. The automated fleet executes the complex unloading process flawlessly. There is zero downtime and zero panicked human delays. This compounding technological advantage makes it impossible for legacy Western brands to survive. Western monopolies simply cannot fight a digital machine that learns at lightning speed. They desperately cling to a broken system built on burned-out human workers. China stepped up to engineer a flawless, relentless maritime ecosystem. The global maritime future belongs entirely to the architects controlling the digital logistics code. The final logistics revolution is already here. The era of global trade relying on human physical endurance is officially dead. We used to believe a sprawling seaport required thousands of sweating dock workers. That outdated model is rapidly collapsing under severe gridlock and severe human burnout. The global maritime future will be decided by the smartest autonomous software. China permanently transformed the chaotic shipping industry into a sterile digital data center. An automated port moves your goods faster and cheaper without human error. Does the traditional dock worker still have a place in this robotic future? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below.